it's an incredible opportunity because we would have a chance to look at all of the systems around the world. What has worked, what hasn't worked, what safeguards have been in place in countries that do well, which don't. And we could build something unique, I mean, maybe modeled on other systems, but taking the best of everything. It's really our chance to do something very new. So we look forward to it that way, but to commit at this time and say it will be this, it will be that, I wouldn't be being truthful because we don't know yet. But now is the time to have the discussion, and at least that first part is kind of all agreeing and knowing what we don't want. That's a good start to begin with, and we'll move on from there.
All right, thanks. We have the referendum to have a referendum, and then we have a referendum. And then we have negotiation with Alberta and the federal government. So my question is, do you think that our current UCP government administration would negotiate on behalf of the people of Alberta?
Well, I mean, I'm not in their heads, but I don't believe that a group who advocates for the status quo and campaigns against self-determination could effectively negotiate in good faith. That's my belief. So, you know, there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered, and even more going to be asked after the upcoming referendum. You know, if it goes one way, well, now we got to start thinking about, okay, well, if the will of the people is to pursue self-determination, are we going to allow a government in the way? What is our or else? What are we going to do to get the things we want, right? But I don't think that our current government would be the right one to do it.
Yeah, looking at where things are right now, this opportunity this fall for that question, again, is as much as it's a question to move on further, it still is a mandate. If we come out strongly, if we got 60% to pick option 2, we have given them a mandate very clearly. And we haven't just put Ottawa on notice, we've put Edmonton on notice. And there's already a lot of debate. And I think that's kind of cool down with some people thinking we should try and tear that government out of power right now in Edmonton. I got a feeling that would just be a little bit too immediate and causing more damage than we would do good at this time. But if at that time they've been given a mandate like that and they still dig their heels in, then yeah, I guess it's time for the movement to shift to say, well, we better change who's sitting in the Premier's seat. But that would be their determination at that time. If there's one thing politicians like to do, it's save their own skin. And if it's been a big referendum and a large turnout of people came out to say, we want this, I assure you many of the politicians will be scrambling to get in front of that parade because they want to stay in on that mandate. Maybe not because of the right reasons, or maybe because they really always felt like they wanted to support independence, but it allowed them to come out of the closet. The first step of our road, and there's a lot, and as Chris said, if they're going to be this hardcore federalist, I can't see them being good negotiators for us later. But still, our first step right now is to get as strong a mandate as we possibly can in the question this fall. And there's still a lot more to be done after that, but that's sort of step one.
And remember, this upcoming referendum is a question on whether or not we want the government to pursue the legal process to put a proper question to us. And that's why I say a lot of questions are going to be answered. If we get an overwhelming response one way or another, we watch how the government responds, and we'll know pretty quick whether or not they're appropriate. I have a written question here. The question is, in your opinion, what are the solar panels and wind turbines doing? Well, let me expand that question a little bit. So I believe the question is around alternative energy, or maybe replacing oil and gas with so-called green energy. I believe that a lot of the policy that we pursued, even as Canadians, not just Albertans, in the last 20 years, have not been science evidence-backed policies, but instead have been ideologically driven things based on emotions. I believe that, if we're taking high-grade farmland and plastering solar panels all over it without really weighing the risks of doing so, I think that's irresponsible. If we're putting up windmills near people's houses and causing, like, we've seen some pretty nasty things come from this, right? The frequencies in that we didn't understand this, it's causing people harm. And it's killing a lot of birds. We didn't really weigh the risks to the benefit. Now, if you look at oil and gas, the benefits from oil and gas has moved us up from, I don't know what the metric was, it was 3% to 97% in quality of life. So our quality of life in all statistics shot dramatically and drastically upwards when we started using oil and gas. It was the single greatest thing to promote and encourage human flourishing that the world has ever seen. And I think a lot of that was ignored when we started allowing people to demonize the things that benefited humanity the most and start replacing them with things that were based on more ideological theories rather than reality. So, I don't know exactly what the wind turbines and panels are doing to people, to the environment, or things like that. I don't subscribe to know everything, but I can tell you that it's irresponsible to completely ignore the benefits of one energy source and only focus on the hazards, and then use that distinction to cast it aside and do something different. That's my position on that.
Most energy sources, if they're any good, it's simple enough to find out how. If we don't subsidize them, the good ones will rise to the top. If the solar and wind was any bloody good, we wouldn't have to pour billions of dollars of tax on it. And they have their place. I'm not dissing the whole thing. I love the solar array on my fifth wheel when I'm boondocking in the desert and charges my batteries, but that's at a scale where it's useful to me. And I choose that as a private investor. I think it's worth it to me. There's no cost-benefit analysis that makes it look worthwhile to put a bunch of panels across good farmland that have a shelf life that will die off with a big, it's just not good. That's why they have to get billions in subsidies to get these things working. Likewise with the wind. Plus the problem with both of those is if the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, they don't do anything. So you're still going to be burning natural gas or damming a river or burning some coal. It's a supplemental at best, and it always will be. And it may be, if the technology gets good enough and it gets cheap enough, it gets efficient enough, maybe it'll still be there as a good supplemental. Perhaps, I don't fight all technology. But until it's worth putting in without subsidizing it, it's just a dog we got to get away from. As Chris said, it's ideologically driven, not by cost benefit, and it's going to stop.
So just so you folks know, I'm not playing video games on my phone. I'm actually watching the stream, and I'm trying to make sure that we catch the questions, because we've been accused of gatekeeping to questions just because I'm not in two places at once. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. There's a question from Andy here. His question is, if separation is supposed to end Alberta being overruled by distant urban power centers, what exactly stops rural Alberta from eventually being overruled by Calgary and Edmonton? The same way Alberta says Ottawa overrules them now. And if the answer is simply, our own government would listen better, then isn't that the exact same promise every centralized government already makes? And this is one for you, Corey.
Oh, it's one of my favorites. It gets right back to, if we were so stupid as to become independent and bring in the Westminster system again, we deserve the crappy government. That question is premised on us having the same system after having become independent. But it's still a good question. Because there are systems that can recognize regional diversity. And when we talk about systems, I write about that in my book, and I've talked about it in other places. For example, I love the Swiss system. It's a small, landlocked country. It's got 4 official languages, very diverse, very different groups of people within a small area, and 26 cantons, 26 provincial equivalents, but with a great deal of autonomy. And some of them are very socialist, some of them are very capitalist. As I said, there's 4 different languages between all of them. Some have highly dense populations around Geneva and the bigger cities. Some are sparsely populated. And guess what? They're not fighting with each other. There's no independence movement. Canada, we can't even manage 2 languages. And the reason is because you don't have that centralized government system. You've allowed that authority to be brought down to the local level. So if we had a similar system, it doesn't have to be like Switzerland necessarily, but one that recognizes Edmonton's going to have different needs and wants than Lethbridge will, and Lethbridge is going to have different wants than Claresholm will, and Claresholm's going to have different wants than Barhead will. And we got to allow those regions to have that local authority, bring the power down. Because if we centralize it again, the questioner is right. Eventually the cities will dominate the rural areas and these battles will just begin on a micro level. So we just have to make a better system, learn from what we've come from. Because yes, politicians will all like to see if we give them the authority, so let's not give it to them.
My question is about something I read today, that Premier Smith is going to be sequestering a panel to find out how much it costs to separate. Now, I know she already said something, well, probably a month ago or so, that was like $400 billion or something like that, right, for us to separate. So did you hear about this news today?
Yes, I did. And that's actually very exciting that she's doing that. And if it's done in good faith, it's going to show unequivocally that Alberta would be far, far better off economically not in confederation. When I watched her talk about the 400, and it wasn't just the 400 billion, it was the 400 billion dollars that it would cost or may cost, and then the 50 to 75 billion dollars a year, I started scratching my head and said, okay, wait a minute, I'm a high school graduate, but I'm not university educated, I'm not a math professor, and just off the top of my head, I know that number's not right. So I went and I did a bunch of research on it. I used Claude AI and ChatGPT and went on Statistics Canada and all sorts of things, and I wrote a trifold that's back there that all of you can look at, and it says, show me the other half of the ledger. And it gives as honest an account as I could come up with my limited resources as to what the economics would look like in independent Alberta. Now this isn't, obviously it's not an easy task to do, but information is available pretty easily online, and we can look and see what goes out from Alberta, what comes back in, and what share of federal services we pay for. So when people say you're gonna have to pay for borders, newsflash, we already pay for that. We pay our share. Oh, you're gonna have to pay for your share of international trade. Newsflash, we already do that. And more, right? So I would encourage you to pick up a copy of that, show me the other half of the bill, and read it. Challenge me if you think I'm wrong. Maybe send me a thumbs up if you think that it's well done and I'm right. But my point is, this isn't just a talking point. This is a real thing that we have to get to the bottom of, and I believe it is, no, not believe. I will say that it is absolutely irresponsible for any politician to start spewing assumptions for the purpose of making one group of people fearful of pursuing what they want to pursue. That isn't right from any politician, from any party. So it is a good thing that they're going to do it, and I'm excited to see the results, because I know if it's done in good faith, it's going to be very, what's the word? It's going to be a very positive piece of news.
Yeah, I'll just add a little, and I've been kind of a pretty staunch defender of Premier Smith and pointing out that she never campaigned on being an independent supporter. She was a federalist, she doesn't have to take an independent stance. But I tell you, that rant, when she went off about that $400 billion, really ticked me off, because she knows better, and it was a disingenuous statement. That the numbers, and she knows bloody well that they were BS. Of that, for example, she called it transitional costs. She's saying those would be the costs to get out. And then she said 170 billion of that would be our share of the debt. Okay, let's say we negotiated that share of the debt. She said that in that same rant. She prepared it, so she had a number of things she said were going to cost us. Well, let's say we took the 170 billion. Fine. We have it already. We're just cutting our chunk off the credit card. That's not new. It's not transitional. So that was BS on the part of the Premier, and that pissed me off. I don't like being BS. And then she said we'd have to pay 25 billion a year because we'd be NATO members, and we'd have to do that to keep our military up to the standards of the 5% GDP commitment. There was more to her. She broke down that 400 billion on these statements. again, a whole pile of assumptions that we would even join NATO. Canada's just got up to 2%. Why the hell would we be obligated to 5 even if we join? It was just absurd and ridiculous. And I'm like Chris, I do want to see a proper, honest cost-benefit analysis done by some experts. But when I saw the Premier get off on that point, I lost a lot of confidence that they're going to do this without BSing us. I hope it was just a moment that maybe she took one too many wake-up pills in the morning and got a little confused that day at the microphone. Because it's really not typically character to be that bold of just going right away from the truth like that. So I really hope something good comes of it. I think she did get a heck of a lot of blowback out of that. So perhaps they'll reconsider things. I still want to maintain optimism because, like Quebec, if the government puts these things forward, it'll give us a good basis.
Just one more thing before we take your question. If the government came back and said, it's going to cost $400 billion to do this, I would say, okay, where do I sign? I would. And part of the reason for that is, if they say, if we do this, we're going to have our share of the debt is $175 billion. I would say, okay, what's it going to be next year? And if you're a fiscally responsible person of any capacity, if you're going to have to pay $175 billion this year, if you get out, if you wait till next year, it's going to be $200 billion. What do you want to do? Do you want to wait until you owe more or get out now? So these are things that they never talk about, and this is why it's important for Albertans to have these conversations. So when we hear them telling us these talking points, we can come back with some reality checks for them so that they know that we're paying attention. And your question?
Hi, I have a two-part question. My first part will be for both of you, and then I have another question after, specifically for Chris. Hello, everybody. Just to give a little rundown of who I am, because it's going to be relevant. I am 50 years old next month. High school dropout, criminal record, blue-collar worker. I've good money, etc. I'm not struggling. Despite my history. I was part of the 2022 border blockade protest. My Canadian flag still flies. My Canadian flag still flies from my truck more than 4 years later. I've never voted Liberal. I've never voted NDP in my life. My name is Brett Boyd. I took place in Chris's live stream last night. I presented a question via the live stream, which they mocked me, made fun of me, called me, they were derogatory towards me.
Who's they?
Both of you, because then Mr. Morgan this morning on his live stream, when I was just, for the record, asking questions. I was not swearing, I was not being mean, I was not being ridiculous. I'm just a guy. Never voted Liberal, never voted NDP, part of the border blockade protest. You guys both, tonight TV, sit there and talk about how you want to bring people over, win people over, shift people's thoughts. Chris, of yourself, say you want to have the difficult conversations with people that don't see the same. How can you sit there, Mr. Corey Morgan, this morning, you called me, you signaled me out in your live stream. I hope it's still up. You guys can all go check. Yeah, you called me a leftard, a libtard, a peckerhead, etc. Your words, peckerhead. I want to know how you guys can be derogatory, demeaning, calling people names, insulting our military personnel, and actually think that you're going to win people over.
Okay, I'll interrupt you there. Nobody's insulting the military personnel. We can be absolutely be total dinks from time to time. I will admit that. I never claim to be perfect. If I go and I pull a transcript of that live stream, the way that you're framing questions was not necessarily conducive to action-wanting answers. I'll tell you that right now. And sometimes, we do take time to answer people like we're going to today, who we know are not asking questions in good faith. I know that. I know that some of your questions weren't. And if you don't, if you're going to deny that, then our conversation's over. Because
Look, you're not going to be everybody can go see for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, absolutely. There are times I use derogatory things. I call people names from time to time. I probably shouldn't do that. But at the same time, I don't just bend and kneel to people who are framing questions like that. I can tell when people are asking questions in good faith, like you are right now. What you're asking right now, this is in good faith. But when I can see people for answers or trying to trap in some sort of an ism, or making accusations that are completely untrue, like your accusation about us disrespecting the military, that is completely untrue. Both of us have said on many occasions that we don't have a problem with our service people, we have a problem with the way Confederation Canada has treated them, and we want something better for them. I frequently talk about why I believe Alberta needs to chart its own course. One of the reasons is because every winter I hear on the news that more veterans are frozen to death on the streets of Edmonton, Calgary. I have a problem with these things. I respect our service people. I do not respect what the country has done to them, right? So, you know, you made an accusation to me. I responded to that accusation in a way that you didn't like. Corey responded in a way you didn't like. But when you enter the public sphere in these things, as we do, you're not always going to get the answer that you want. And maybe sometimes you're even going to get called a name. I get called names all the time. And I get it. Emotions are high around this conversation. Thank you for wearing the hoodie, by the way. That's an awesome hoodie. I like to see you're supporting the Mississauga Cafe.
We'll get back to that for my second part.
Yeah. But, you know, that's just the way it is. Neither Corey and I are politicians. We are completely average, imperfect human beings that do imperfect things from time to time. It does not mean that our cause isn't worthy. It doesn't mean that we don't actually want to talk to people. It just means that we're not perfect, and sometimes that's the response people get. And I will apologize if it hurt your feelings. But I'm less concerned about the feelings, and I'm more concerned
I
about the
just have a response to that, where I was asking about the flag and how the English Red Cross is there, which is literally symbolizing a British colony, and paying homage to that or respect to that, that wouldn't it make more sense if you want this freedom of independence from that to not use that flag? You said I framed the question in a negative way. I don't understand how that's framed.
It was different questions, but
And you didn't answer my question when I asked, how is it you expect to win people over and bring people over when they see people like Corey Morgan on his live stream this morning calling me a left-tard, libtard, peckerhead, and never voted Liberal or NDP in my life and was at the border blockade?
Okay.
How are you winning people over?
Let me answer the question about the flag. I do not share your interpretation or assumption on what that flag means. It doesn't mean that to me. It can mean that to you. It doesn't mean that to me. I will use this until we design another one. It doesn't mean colonialism for me. It's a St. George's Cross. It represents somebody that stood up for what they believe in and were martyred for it. That's what it means to me. You may not share that, and that's why I said you're free to design your own thing, propose a flag, do whatever you want. But again, like that question, that's not, I don't understand how that question is getting us any closer to any kind of a solution. Like arguing about my use of a flag, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's a personal preference. Okay? So now I'm going to let Corey answer the other part.
And I don't use the term left-hand, so quit paraphrasing. I will go into, hey, I'm talking now. You've had your moment. I have a show that I run daily. I just want to give the context. A lot of people watch it. And it's my nature on it. I'm a grumpy host. If you're going to use the comment scroll and engage me provocatively, you'll get the kind of response from me that you got. You went on about Canada being genocidal. You went on about the Palestinian genocidal stuff. And then when I pointed out I'd been to Israel and Gaza, oh, he admitted he's been to Israel. Kiss my ass, I'm a Jewish journalist who went to Israel. I'm not in the mood for conspiracy kooks who want to come in and ruin my chat thread during my live show. So if you're going to step into the middle of it, you're going to get slapped back. And you got it again tonight, Pepperhead.
And yet, here I am. You're really answering the question of how you're winning people over with that sort of attitude. You're not.
Well, we're not going to, he's not going to win you over. That's
The second part of my question to Chris. I was part of the border blockade in 2022. I was sitting at the border, watching you drive home, abandoning those people in Ottawa. I want to know, when the tough gets going and the chips are down, how are we supposed to be assured that you're not going to tuck tail and run again? when tough things get
You,
tough.
sir, are talking out your ass and you have no idea what you're talking about.
I was at the
You
border
didn't see
watching.
you didn't see me flipping out in that truck, that I wasn't there for that. You didn't hear me and arguing with my other girlfriend, Carrie, about leaving so he could get back to work so he wouldn't lose his job. You think I wanted to get arrested in the second province for standing up for what I believe in? You have no idea what the hell you're talking about, and that's why Corey called you a peckerhead. Because you come into these conversations and you make these assumptions and accusations to people like me who have actually risked a lot of shit, and thank you for taking the time and the risk that you took for being in Coots. But don't you dare assume that you have any damn clue about my motivations for leaving Ottawa. That is a very sore spot for me, and I regret that every day. I wish that I had just gotten them on a plane, even though they couldn't fly because the fucking government wouldn't let them, and I stayed there to be with those people. So thank you for your questions. I'll continue talking about this afterwards, but we're done with this line of questioning.
Obviously struck a nerve. You can have a heart attack. You're our leader.
Thank you. You don't deserve the word.
You're no leader. Peckerhead.
Sometimes it gets spicy, but that's why we talk.
Yeah, you call people peckerhead, but yet you're trying to win people over and you want to have discussions.
Good night, sir.
Not gonna work.
Good night.
Sit down.
No, I'm leaving.
So, I'm gonna try and make this a little bit longer. Your circles that you guys see.
Fuck these peckerheads.
The current government, like Kristen, for example, the position that she's in coming into this, how much?
Thank you, everybody. Thank
do
you.
think is just placating,
Terrible.
to get us
Terrible,
where
terrible, terrible.
to make this happen?
Don't worry, live stream's gonna stay going because anybody tries to fuck around, they're gonna find the fuck out.
It was me that had to go home. I was gonna do my job.
Turn the camera around. I told the guys they weren't gonna like my questions. Fuck you, you fucking prick. Fucking call me a peckerhead. You're a fucking joke. These fucking cunts. Anyways, down here at Claresholm, obviously struck a chord with these motherfuckers. Didn't like my questions, freaked the fuck out, made them look like idiots. You see how they talk and treat the people that were at the border blockade? They could give two fucks. Give two fucks. They need their little safe spaces, echo chambers. Spread their propaganda and their fucking false narrative bullshit. These fucking pukes. I'm ending this. Free Palestine. Fuck these assholes.